prospects for a broad anti-racist social justice movement coming out of that mobilization?
There are prospects, but it's going to be very hard. This is a very racist society. I mean, it's pretty shocking. What has happened in the last roughly 30 years with regard to African Americans actually is very similar to what Baptist describes in the late 19th century. Remember what happened. The constitutional amendments during and after the Civil War were supposed to free African American slaves. It did something for about 10 years. Then there was a North-South Compact, which essentially granted the former slave-owning states the right to do whatever they wanted. And what they did was criminalize black life in all kinds of ways. That created a kind of a slave force. In fact, one of the most interesting books on it, Douglas Blackman's, is called Worse Than Slavery or something like that. It threw mostly black males, but also women, into jail, where they become a perfect labor force, much better than slaves. If you're a slave owner, you have to you have to keep your capital alive. If the state does it for you, it's terrific. No strikes, no disobedience, perfect labor force. A lot of the American Industrial Revolution in the late 19th, early 20th century is based on that. Actually, it pretty much lasted until the Second World War, when there was a need for what's called free labor in the war industry. After that come about two decades in which African Americans had a kind of a shot at entering the society. A black worker get a job in an auto plant. The unions were still functioning, maybe buy a small house, send his kid to college or something. By the 1970s or 80s, it's going back to criminalization of black life. It's called the drug war, which is a racist war. Ronald Regan was an extreme racist, didn't hide it. And the whole drug war, so-called, is designed from policing up to eventual release from prison to make it impossible for the black male community and more women and more Hispanics to be part of the society. In fact, if you look at American history, the first slaves came in 1619. I mean, that's half a millennium. There have been about 3 or 4 decades in which African Americans had a limited degree of freedom. Not entirely, but at least some. Now, of course, it's for black elites, there's some privileges, but I'm talking about the mass of the population, which has been recriminalized and incidentally also turned into a slave labor force. There's prison labor, for example. Well, this is American history. To break out of that is no small trick. Yeah. In fact, if you take a look at the election, say the last election, in many ways it's a civil war. The red states of the Confederacy. It extends a little beyond, but that's pretty much what it is. Yeah. And of course, this is a real battle.